Please welcome tonight's moderator, actress Peri Gilpin. The cast of Frasier: Anders Keith, Jess Selueiro, Toks, Olagundoye, Jack Cutmore-Scott, Joe Cristallie, Chris Harris, executive producer and Frasier, Kelsey Grammer.
Hi.
Go, Peri.
Okay, so what do you guys want to know? I had the pleasure of joining this group of people, and I had so much fun, and so I'm excited to hear these answers to some of these questions, too. So, Kelsey, from a character development perspective, how did you go about filling in those years between I don't know.
Right, I got it. Yes. When we stopped doing it and when we started again.
Yes, yes.
Well, it didn't occur to me until the Roseanne show got some attention, and I thought, well, you know what, she was on around the same time we were, and they did pretty well, and I liked how she came back to television and the way they sort of hit the ground running, and they didn't try to make it the same show it used to be. It was as though they had all grown up a little bit, and I thought, well, that's certainly the key. I thought if I ever went back to playing Frasier, and it has been sort of on our radar for about the last 10 years or so, sort of thinking, maybe we should revisit this guy. He was kind of fun to play before, and he's defined by his love, always. He's always been defined by how much he loves being alive and how much he wants to help people and how much he cares. And so I thought, well, you can still play that, and he's just grown up more now. And what's fun is we got a few things out of the way. We got his obsession with becoming wealthy out of the way. He's now almost as rich as Oprah. So, that's a really good feeling. And I'll tell you a quick sidebar. This is really silly, but I was doing one of her book club shows up at Pebble Beach, near where John Steinbeck wrote, of course, where he grew up. And so it's called East of Eden. And we read the book, and somewhere in the middle, in the first commercial break, she leaned over to me and she said, "You have a property on Maui, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I do." And then she said, "I've just bought something there called Haleakala." I said, "So you bought the national monument, the crater?" And she said, "No, it's a ranch on the slopes of the crater." And I thought, well, that's a lot more money than I have. But not anymore, damn it. So. But Frasier hit the ground running. He's still in love. He's still looking for love. He had found something, and in Chicago he became famous and rich like Oprah. And then something came up. His dad died, and life took a new turn. And we had planned a couple of other things at first. We had a couple of other ideas about what the show should or could be. And when it became clear that a couple of people weren't going to be coming back to the show, it suddenly was like it hit like a crack of lightning, like, oh, he's got to go back to Boston. He has to go to Boston and sort of reclaim what his dream had been as a young man. And so he's doing a little bit of a retread on his life that has some resolution that didn't happen. And I think that actually is a rich area for him to explore, because there's a lot of doors that are still not closed exactly for Frasier. There's a lot of stuff that he hasn't found closure on, and a lot of questions about his own identity that he hasn't resolved. And so, it's meaty stuff.
What kinds of things about Frasier's identity has he not solved?
Well, he was really in love with Diane. He fell completely in love with her. In fact, when I first read for the role, the only thing I thought about when I saw the sides, and I thought to myself, the way to play this guy is that he's never really been in love before. He is completely in love with her. And it's the first time in his life. And of course, that didn't go so well. So he has an image of himself being successful in Boston, being married, maybe have family, things like that didn't happen the way he thought they should. And so he has to work through some of that.
And going back to Boston is the way you think he...
Yeah.
You think just being there.
Well, it's like he gets to walk around in his old footsteps and redefine them.
Right.
Which is great.
Speaking of Boston, Jimmy Burrows, who directed the first 2 episodes and has directed probably more television than any of us could imagine, Mr. Burrows recently said, "In another actor's shoes, Frasier Crane could be detestable, and Mr. Grammer makes him lovable." And I wonder what you think of that. What's your reaction to that?
Well, he's right about it in a weird way. I mean, Frasier's Well, he's quirky and he's obsessed with certain things that maybe aren't particularly what other people are obsessed with. But in the end, somebody asked me recently, I did a charity thing somewhere, and they asked, of all the things, what would you say is the one defining character of Frasier that made him easy to play? And I said, well, he loves with his whole heart. And that was the first thing I thought about him. And it has always remained true. He cares so deeply about things that his what may seem like foolishness or an obsession with an objective goal, whatever, is based upon something in him that wants to prove he's important, wants to be loved.
Well, I think he is.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Peri.
And Jack, what do you think of, how does it feel to be Freddy? I mean, I love the episode where I loved when that things were a little prickly, you know, that things were not so easy to just hop right in and be his son.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hugely complicated relationship. I mean, you've got a wildly complicated individual right here, and I think that the most interesting part of it is that Freddy is just as complicated. He's had this, a somewhat estranged, more distant relationship with his dad for the last 30-odd years, and to have, this massive change of circumstance, to have his dad not just back in his life, but as we know from season 1, living with the guy and like full on, this is, immersion therapy kind of stuff we're talking about. It's a huge amount of fun to play because you get to not just explore Freddy as a character, in isolation. The most fun is to watch him play off and play with a character that we've known and loved for so long, and figure out how that dynamic is going to inform both of their personalities and their life experience to this point. They're both kind of in search of something, I think, and for Freddy, a huge driving factor, a huge driving element for the character in my mind is some clarity and some closure is the wrong word, but progress in his relationship with his dad, and to really figure out who he is as an adult. That is this thing that's been missing, and I think that what Joe and Chris have done so well is to set up this show, our iteration, as an opportunity to do that, to figure out who he is, and in doing so help Frasier, find who he is at this. They're both kind of at these junction points in their life.
Do you ever watch John play Martin? Do you ever get any inspiration from Marty Crane?
Of course. I mean, it's the most wonderful performance, the most lovable character, the most incredibly talented actor. Yeah, how could you not? He's a true inspiration. I mean, I wish to God I'd actually met him and known him personally, but I have gone and rewatched. There's a few episodes. There's like a handful. You can catch them on Paramount Plus, but there are a few there to watch and draw some stuff from. And he's just he found in the same way, I think, as we were talking about, as Jimmy was talking about with Kelsey and Frasier. Martin Crane is this gruff kind of, he starts out very crotchety, and he's got he's like, in any other hands, this could just be a fairly uninteresting archetype of a grumpy old man, and that's just not what Martin Crane is at all. And I think that John just did a fantastic job, not just with that character, but with that relationship and drawing us into something that is deep and personal and incredibly complex.
Yeah, I think you do that too.
Mm-hmm.
That's very kind of you.
And now Freddy talks with an English accent, which is weird.
Yeah.
He spent the summer there, right?
We figured we'd try it. Why not? Just...
Toks, I wanted to ask you, your character interacts with Kelsey and Nicholas's.
Nicholas Lyndhurst, yeah.
Nicholas Lyndhurst plays Professor Allen. And Toks, the three of you are sort of like a troupe. Where does that come from? Where does that energy come from?
I don't know. I think that they're all sort of missing something, and that thing that they're missing makes them a little it makes her incredibly neurotic. it makes Alan like he just doesn't care anymore. He just couldn't care less. And I think it makes Frasier like it has this like sort of like excitement about it that he's taking it seriously, but I feel like he's also like playing like he's in his old playground again. And I think that the mixture of that, they're all kind of like missing something that the other one is like getting, if you know what I mean. So it like creates this thing where they can play off of each other, but it's an energy where they're not really, it's like it's almost frenetic, you know. It's like they're just not getting it. But I mean, I have the most fun, you know, between
It's a
you
good
and Nick.
group.
Oh, it's such a good
Three
group.
Musketeers.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but you know, if you spent any time growing up in England, Nick Lyndhurst he's acting royalty here. So to be able to work with him, it's not intimidating at all. It's fine.
How do you think that Olivia challenges Frasier?
I think that Olivia is so driven. She's such an overachiever, and she has these goals of, you know, being the youngest person to do this and the first woman to do that or whatever. But I think that whenever he has something that he really wants to do or really doesn't want to do, she just doesn't care. She's just like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're doing what I want to do because I need you to do this so that I can achieve what I need to achieve, kind of a thing. So
You're very good at getting him to do it.
yeah, it's in the script. He has to. So
You make it work.
thank you.
Jess, I have a special question for you. You've been pretty open about being a sitcom snob. So prior to shooting,
She has.
Oh, no.
so did you not watch sitcoms before?
No, okay. By the way, I don't have a British accent. I do
she
have
is
a
Canadian.
Canadian
I have one
one.
now.
And the sitcom snob thing was an interview with the Toronto Star.
Let's put this to bed.
Yes, because it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
They were projecting onto you because the Toronto Star is a sitcom snob.
Exactly. Thank you. So I don't know. I went to theater school. We did, you know, Chekhov, Shakespeare. I think what I thought multicam sitcom acting was a little bit different than what it actually is. And I remember our first episode taping, I was backstage and I was like, I would rather do a monologue where I have to be weeping in a close-up than this, right? And it scared me so much. And I realized, oh my God, what you guys did is amazing. It's so much harder than it looks. It really, really, really is. I mean, yes, you have the theatrical element to it, but it is a TV show.
Yeah.
It's both things. And yeah, now I really respect it, and I don't want that to chase me. Okay,
Bastard.
I settled it here. You heard it here.
It is weird. I remember going to watch Friends in sitcoms before Frasier, just going to see people in Cheers or, you know, guest starring. And I remember sitting in the audience going, how are they even breathing right now? How are they going to walk out and do it? You know, and then I did it, and I don't know how I did it, but it's a feat. You've really accomplished something when you walk out there. And
Peri, didn't you guest on Cheers?
I did.
Yeah, right. Last season?
I did. It was called Woody Gets an Election.
Yeah.
It was
Right, yeah,
towards
yeah.
the last episode.
And he did, apparently.
And he did, yes. And you
That was
guys
one
all
of the
threw
things that
spitballs
referred
at
you
me.
to us when we were, you know, looking for the Ross character. It was like, oh, she was on Cheers. I said, well, yeah, I remember her. She was great. That
I
was,
think you said, you should read for this part. And I'm like, I have read like 5 times.
Sorry.
No.
But
No, it all happened so fast, you know. No, it was so cool. And I was so thrilled that I got to do it because, you know, you guys all threw spitballs at me. You can watch the episode and see them hitting me in the
yeah, that's right.
So I
I know I have to confess something. I did not partake in the spitball shooting.
Okay.
This was on Cheers. It started, Woody, Ted, and George would take an opportunity during the shooting of the show to wad up a piece of paper and soak it up a little bit in their mouth. then take a straw, cocktail stirrer, straw, and do it like while on camera. And you can see there's a couple of times when Woody kind of goes like that. It's just awful behavior. I mean, completely unprofessional. But that's why it took sometimes till 4 a.m. to finish an episode of Cheers. Where Frasier, we were done like at 10 o'clock. It's like,
But you know what? I felt like I was part of the game.
You were.
I liked it.
Thank you so much, by the way. Do you see his face? Do you know what he's going to be doing now?
Yes.
See him?
go.
Get ready.
That
Get ready.
firehouse. Yeah, there's probably an opportunity.
Anders, I want to ask you a question, and I have 2 questions for you, but I hate to ask you this, but I have to because you are the child of Niles and Daphne, and is that pressureful or?
I feel a lot of pressure
To what?
in my daily life. So I feel that it was just moving the pressure. It's like when you're having dental surgery. They don't call it pain. They just say you're going to feel some pressure.
There you go.
And so it's been I've been saying a lot. Just going to keep this metaphor going. It was nerve-wracking for sure. But the lovely thing about having a show that existed before is that you have some sort of reference for what the tone is supposed to be and some backstory, in life, you sort of wait for your parents to tell you the lore, as it were. Suddenly your dad says, oh yeah, I was in the circus. You go, what? But all of that is there. Oh yeah, no, I know about the seal. I know all that. And so it was pressure, but as an actor, it was a great gift. And I was incredibly grateful for the performances that both my fictional parents gave. Anytime I did feel the pressure, though, I'll stop rambling. I just followed Mr. Grammer's advice and leaned into my mother, who is the heart, right? And you feel the heart, you lean into the heart, you lead with the heart, which is, Freddy might not know it, but that's the way we all operate in the family.
That's right.
And that will guide you.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
It's funny. I'll do a quick sidebar on this. We talked about this a long time ago when they were first hatching the idea of Niles' son. I said, well, you can't have him act like Niles. I mean, he can act like Niles some. We can recognize traits, but the most important thing is to find out how much of his mother's in him, and that's been really helpful because everybody's ready to accept that he's David Hyde Pierce like in a completely different form, but. What makes him interesting is he's got this mother, and I loved the fire station episode where you said, "Yeah, I talk to her all the time," and I'll tell my mom, and I thought that was fantastic. And of course, they all started weeping because they thought he was an orphan. So.
And my second question was just about, do you ever go to the dentist? And I think you can.
They keep calling me, but I told them I have enough pressure. Anyway.
Oh. So I'm going to move on now.
I think it's a good call.
Chris Harris, I wanted to ask you, so what do you find the most rewarding about the sitcom world? And I loved How I Met Your Mother so much, and I really caught up on it during the pandemic. My 20-year-old twins watched it back to back to back to back to back, and it's so wonderful and warm, and I just wanted to say that. And what do you like about this?
Besides hearing that actors compare the experience to dental surgery.
Oh yeah.
No, it's so, especially the most exciting thing, especially after years of COVID, was coming back onto set and that experience of being in front of a live audience and feeling that the laughter and the joy. I remember one person back on How I Met Your Mother was like, mentioned this idea that look at what we're doing for a living. we're here to make people laugh and make people sort of feel like they're part of another family for a half hour every week. And what a joy that is. It's so delightful. So feeling that both on the stage and then feeling that from folks who watch the show, that's the best part of all. And all the time I say, look at what we're doing. This is amazing.
Isn't it the greatest just to hear the audience laugh and like really enjoy what they're watching? And I loved it. I love it too. Joe, you have a very interesting origin story. How did you come to?
Frasier went off the air, and then about 6 years later, I decided, or 7, 8 years later, I started a Twitter account with the sole purpose of getting hired as a writer on Frasier, which had been off the air for 7 or 8 years. And I thought it was funny. And then some years after that, Kelsey came out in the press and said, I'm going to bring Frasier back. So I forced my agent to send this now deleted Twitter account, because it should be, to Kelsey's producers, to Tom and Jordan. And that, along with a spec script of Frasier I had, which I shouldn't have had at the time, got me a meeting with them. And they were very, very nice, and I kind of gave them my broad stroke ideas for what Frasier could be. And they'll deny this, but before I got to my car, Jordan had already emailed me, we're not going to give you Frasier. Like, you're a staff writer on Life. No, we're not going to give you Frasier. That's crazy. But find somebody who's, done this a while. So I hitched myself to this. You got to grab onto those coattails when you see a shooting star. And I said, Chris Harris, can you help me write Frasier? And he had seen a couple of the original, and he thought, yeah, that seems like
it's pretty good.
It's good. He's almost seen the whole run. He's going to see it eventually. But Chris and I came up with a pitch. Basically, Chris and I came up with a pitch for the show, me being an insane, psychotic super fan, him being an even-keeled normal person. So jokes in the script, it's like, well, this is a reference to Bulldog in season 2, and Chris will say something like, do you think we should maybe do a joke that everyone would enjoy? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, okay. And we ended up finding a nice sort of middle ground that, the super fan enjoys and the normal person enjoys. But we came up with a pitch, and we pitched it to Kelsey and Tom and Jordan, and I guess he liked it. And then a quick 6 years later, we shot a pilot.
I know.
I think I had no kids at the time of pitching, and I have 4 now, so it's been a while.
What else are we going to talk about? Okay.
I'll be glad to jump in real quick.
Yes.
You may just find this fun. My wife is English, and
It is fun.
Bulldog reference. He would always say, all right, who stole my this, right? And then he'd say, oh, here it is. So my wife, the first year or two we're living together, goes around the house saying, I knew it. Somebody stole it. Somebody took this. Somebody took it. I took it. Then she goes, oh, no, here it is. So I said, so, Bulldog. And she says, how dare you? That's it. That's all I got. I'll tell you another quick one. I was actually a sitcom snob. I really was. I got a request to read for Frasier for this show called Cheers that was a sitcom on NBC. And I thought, is that the one with the blonde girl in the bar? And they said, yeah, that's it. It's really popular. I said, you're kidding. I saw the pilot. I thought it was terrible. I did think the sitcom was a terrible form of expression. So it's typical that I'd end up making my entire life based upon being on a sitcom.
But Kelsey, also, I remember, because you were understudying The Real Thing, right?
No, Hurly Burly.
Hurly Burly.
Yeah, I was understudying Hurly Burly.
To like Mike Nichols, weren't you standing?
I did. So this is a great story, actually. What the hell? So Mike Nichols, boy, this is even worse. I'm going back, like, really. As I'm standing on the stage rehearsing with him one time, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with his head? There's something wrong with his head. There's something weird about it. What's going on with that? And I didn't say anything, which, thank God. So it turned out he had alopecia. And he had absolutely no hair, and he had a weird-fitting, ill-fitting wig on. And so I was observing something that I was quite, thank God for my grandmother and grandfather who said, don't mention it if you see something that seems a little off, because it may hurt the person's feelings. So I didn't say anything about his wig. But when I got the show Cheers, when they offered it to me, I went to Mike and I said, Mike, I've got this offer to do a show called Cheers, a new character that's going to be introduced on it. He said, no. I said, what, are you kidding? You're kidding, right? I mean, I know you're a funny guy, right? So he said, you're an understudy on a very important show in New York City. Yeah. And then he said, listen, a television show does not a career make. I thought, this is absolute insanity. And I actually went home and I started to cry. And I cried. I was living with my wife at the time, who was many, many years ago. We were very, very poor. We had a mattress on the living room floor. And that was it.
And a baby.
And a baby. And so I'm holding the baby and I'm crying. And I think to myself, this is impossible. So I called my friend Peter Neufeld, who was the company manager on that show, on Hurly Burly. And he said, okay, go to the Carlisle. Don't tell him I told you where he is. Go to the Carlisle, ask for his room number, and beg him. And he said, I will try to help. So I didn't know what that meant. But so I went to the Carlisle, and I got him on the phone. He wouldn't come down and talk to me. I got him on the phone. He said, tell me what you want to tell me now on the phone. So I'm sitting in the Carlisle, basically screaming, you have horses that make more money than I've made in my lifetime just ejaculating into a jar. I thought, maybe this isn't going so well. And he repeated to me that a television show was not going to mean I would have a career. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to kill this guy. But I finally got a call back from him about 6 hours later. Peter had spoken to him and said, it's not just to play like a guest star, it's to play an almost regular, a recurring role, maybe 7 episodes on the most successful show on television right now. And so he said, okay. He called and said, you will give me $5,000 and you will pay, and you will work with the guy who was the other understudy. You will teach him the roles in the next 3 days, and then you can get out. So I handed him a $5,000 check. That was everything I had. And it was what they gave me to move to LA for the show. But years later, I saw him backstage at the Emmys.
Did he cash that $5,000?
Son of a bitch cashed it and spent it. Bought himself a new wig.
So this is a question for everybody. How do you guys think that sitcom humor has evolved over the past 20 years? And how do you guys play with that? Do you ever think about it? Do you think it's different?
You can say horse ejaculating now, which is very helpful. Yeah.
But only here. No, you never do that. No. Shouldn't have done it in the Carlisle either.
Well, I think one of the fun things about Frasier has been sort of like getting back to the sitcom roots in a way. Like I feel like things have gone, like, oh, let's push the envelope. Oh, let's get edgier. And I feel like that's not the strength and not even the original role of the sitcom. It's like, again, it's that communal experience, and again, it's like that, like getting familiar with the characters and being excited to watch them every week. And I feel like in a way, the things that we're trying to do and that we're doing hopefully are almost regressive in a positive way to TV. It's like getting back to like this format that has not had a great couple decades in a way. But I think hopefully if we're doing it right, then we're showing just how wonderful a great sitcom can be, and hearing the laughter and being a part of that laughter, and putting on and producing a stage play every week. That's the exciting thing about this format. So I think that's, in a way, it's almost the things that we're getting back to more than the things that we're innovating.
Okay, this cast has people from England, people from Canada, people from Nigeria. Isn't that amazing? No, wait, no, St. Thomas.
St. Thomas, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's the most international cast.
Connecticut, right?
Connecticut?
I live in Connecticut. Let's not
What about
forget
you,
that.
Joe? Both of you,
Pasadena?
Connecticut?
From Connecticut.
Pasadena.
Oh yes, Pasadena. Oh boy.
And Pasadena
Span the
pretty
globe.
remarkable, honestly.
It is. It really is, and it really shows. And I love what you said because it's hard to make something funny within the parameters of a sitcom. It's challenging, and you guys do it.
It's a lovely form. I mean, I was a sitcom snob, but I'm not anymore. I really love it. It's extraordinary. It is like doing a play every night when you show up on show night. It's like being in summer stock, and you get to wow the audience, and it's such an intimate, wonderful experience. And when it translates well into, when you finally see it on film as well, and you've cut it and edited it, and that exuberance is still kind of present in the final product. I can't imagine doing a job that's any better. It's fantastic.
Okay, it's up to you now. Start talking, Jack.
Well,
Go.
no, I mean, actually, off the back of everything that Chris and Kelsey just said, I think that I'll put my hand up and admit, like, I didn't watch every episode of Frasier as it was airing because I was 5. But
Bedtime.
it was bedtime, and yeah, and because it was England, it was that much later, so it was time zones. But I did, I went back and I watched everything once I heard I was gonna, have to do this, and a huge part of what makes this sitcom, when it's done right, so enjoyable is that it is timeless, because there's no. And I don't know, to what extent this was a conscious choice on the part of the writers, in the original version, but there aren't a huge number of political references. There's not a huge social commentary in terms of what's happening of the moment at that time. And as a result, it ages incredibly well. And once you dive in and you get invested in these characters, you forget that this wasn't shot yesterday. You forget that it's been 20 or 30 years, because the situations they're dealing with, the relationships that they're exploring are perennial. These are things that we are still dealing with. These are things that we literally, the reason that this exists, that we're up here right now, is that there was enough interest in seeing where those relationships and those people are now, and how that has continued. And I think that's what Chris is sort of harkening back to, is that it's not that the humor of a sitcom has dramatically changed. It's that it's very, very tempting to get the funny gag on the, joke politician of the moment, or the whatever it is that is, in the zeitgeist, and we know we'll get a good laugh out of the audience that are in the, studio with us right now. But you're doing a disservice to the audience 20 years down the line, who, like, I don't know who that guy was. I've just missed a whole bunch of jokes because it's kind of like an in-joke that I'm not in on. And I think that is what the original series did so well. And I think that's what Joe and Chris have done so well, is to keep that in mind. And it kind of ties into Joe's, like, let's write jokes that everyone will get, not just the super fans, because that is what ultimately will last. And that's what we'll be able to, hopefully in 10, 15 years, watch this version as well and be like, yeah, that could have been shot yesterday.
Yeah, contemporary culture was always eschewed by us. It was like, for instance, Murphy Brown did a lot of Dan Quayle jokes, and we just thought, well, that's not going to be funny in 5 years. That's not even really that funny right now. But I was...
See, I have no idea who that is.
I was going to say.
There you go.
It's a case in point.
Which is why you probably don't know who Murphy Brown is either.
Not a clue.
Candace Bergen, fabulous. But the idea that we resisted mining an easy contemporary culture joke really did contribute to the longevity of the show.
Absolutely. I saw the funniest episode the other night. Do you remember when you walked in and Gigi Rice was in a towel? Like, there was a lady in your living room in a towel. And you and John walked in and went, "Look what I found in the hallway." It just cracked me up.
Dad,
I'm
well
sorry.
done.
I had that memory.
No,
But those kinds of things that happen to everyone. We all find a naked lady in the hallway.
All the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm usually the naked lady. Yeah, I do have to say,
Well,
you
I'd be willing to watch it.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
You guys aired on my birthday, the first year that I lived in America.
Wow.
In 1993. It must be nice to be so young, Jack.
I was alive.
I moved here for university, and I have to say that I have tested for a lot of sitcoms. And at the end of the day, I kind of was relieved that I didn't get them, because there's a certain magic to the old sitcoms, which isn't always replicated these days, in which you're not assuming the audience is stupid. Right? Like a lot of the more recent sitcoms that I watch, I'm like 10 steps ahead. I already know what's coming. And I'm so thrilled to be able to live inside a world that I watched for so long. And that it's still so true to what it was. It's exactly the kind of comedy I want to be doing. It's great.
Thanks, Toks.
Jess, did you watch this in? Oh, you didn't. That's right. I forgot.
No, not like that. I was like Jack though. I was too young.
Oh,
Just kidding.
You look great for 25.
Thank you so much. About the humor, I mean, I think it's really interesting to see what stays the same, like what they're saying, and the comedy of errors. It's always funny. And I mean, in terms of the comedy changing, I think in every single facet that you see comedy, I mean, stand-up comedians are saying it too, like things change. Like some things just aren't funny anymore. And I just think that what Chris and Joe have done is just kept up with the times, but also just like kept with what's always universally funny. And it works.
Yeah.